And then you also need the psychological nutrients. You need to be reinforced in positivity, in optimism, in hopefulness, in order to heal from the things you're experiencing. Now, can I go to the next slide? Let me go to the next slide. Let me see. All right. Here it is. All right. Now, in the book of Lamentations, you will hear, and I use that word intentionally, I use that verb intentionally, you will hear four primary voices that seem to want to testify. You'll hear the voice of a poet. You'll hear the voice of Judah, or personified Zion. You will hear the unnamed man. You will hear the collective voice. Right? The poet is speaking in the form of a funeral dirge. Right? This is the funeral, the death liturgy. And he's bewailing what happened to the city. Right? So he's taking in view the historical event. The personified Zion is the voice of daughter Zion that you get also in the passage, or the widow who has lost husband and children. Of course, right? The loss of husband, i.e. God, is not through death, but seems to be through some separation, some alienation, some estrangement. And that's the voice that's crying out. So if you remember on Sunday, as Reverends Landry and Jones read from Lamentations 1, the verses that Reverend Landry read were personified Zion's voice, the voice of the feminine crying, voicing the concern on behalf of her people. And if you go to Lamentations 1, let's go to Lamentations 1. I want you to hear the voice of the sister who is crying, who cries out in verse 9. O Lord, behold my affliction, for the enemy is exalted. Right? That's a voice in verse 9, crying out. In verse 11 of verse 12, verse 11, listen to her cry out. See, O Lord, and consider, for I am scorned. Is it nothing to you, verse 12, all who pass by? Behold and see if there is any sorrow like my sorrow, which has been brought upon me, which the Lord has inflicted in the day of his fierce anger. So here's this isolated cry here. And the question, is this nothing to you that you would pass by? Behold and see if there is any sorrow like my sorrow. Is anyone else's lot like mine? And the Lord has inflicted this on me. Verse 13, from above he has set fire into my bones, and it overpowered them. He has spread a net for my feet and turned me back. He has made me desolate and faint all the day. Verse 14, the yoke of my transgressions was bound. They were woven together by his hands and thrust on my neck. He made my strength fail. The Lord delivered me into the hands of those whom I am not able to withstand. Not out of their hands, into their hands. Now, underline that, because I want to take that up in chapter 2 when we're really thinking about what is God's role in this experience. And how we understand how that plays out in this. The Lord has trampled underfoot all my mighty men in my midst. He has called an assembly against me to crush my young men. The Lord trampled as in a winepress the virgin daughter of Judah. Verse 16. For these things I weep, my eye overflows with water, because the Comforter who should restore my life is far from me. My children are desolate because the enemy prevailed. Then the poet picks up in verse 17. Judah personified in the feminine picks up again in verse 18. The Lord is righteous, for I rebelled against his commandment. Hear now, all peoples, and behold my sorrow. My virgins and my young men have gone into captivity. I called for my lovers, but they deceived me. My priests and my elders breathed their last in the city, while they sought food to restore their life. See, O Lord, I am in distress. My soul is troubled. My heart is overturned within me. For I have been very rebellious. Outside the sword bereaves. At home it is like death. They have heard that I sigh, but no one comforts me. All my enemies have heard of my trouble. They are glad that you have done it. Bring on the day you have announced, that they may become like me. Misery wants company here, y'all. Let all their wickedness come before you. Do to them as you have done to me. For all of my transgressions, for my sighs are many, and my heart is faint. She's articulating exactly what she feels. It's weighty. It's heavy. She has been alienated and has to get through the crisis. Here are the issues that she's raising in this chapter. The fact that she, who is supposed to be the pride of his eye, right? The inhabitant of this city that's supposed to not be penetrated, is now subject to conquerors, right? You've done this. You put me over into their hands. You delivered me into their hands. And then all of her lovers, as she would say, former allies, none of them have comfort for her. None of them are responding to her with any compassion, with any care, with any concern. As a matter of fact, they seem to be looking on her situation with amusement. I think that there's a term in German, the pronunciation might be off, called Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is this term in German that means the amusement or the pleasure that one derives from the pain of someone else, right? That there's pleasure that one gains from watching another suffer and struggle. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but it's real. Some people are taking delight in your calamity, in your suffering. For them, it brings them joy, like Anita Baker would say, right? It brings them joy, right? It gives them joy. But it's no excuse for you not to simply articulate what you feel, right? She's talking about the leaders, the priests who have breathed their last as they are going out looking for food. The population has been decimated. Those who have not been deported have been killed. Those who have not died are in despair. They're dreading, the going down of the sun because they don't know where any resource or supply will come from. The temple has been profaned. The festivals that used to come, because the poet writes this line in the chapter about the very roads to Jerusalem are mourning now. The very roads. Can you imagine that imagery? The very pathway that the pilgrims would take is a trail of tears. And the supplies of food and substance and sustenance are all scarce. And you'll see in chapter 2, when it's read on Sunday in the liturgy, how when life throws you in these precarious positions, you will do things, or at least be tempted to do things you never would have imagined considering at all. My, right? Which is why you ought not be so harsh and so quick in passing judgment on other people when you don't live their reality, when you don't walk in their shoes. You have to, because the judgment that you bring on someone else is going to turn back on you. Now, I heard this last night. Someone shared this clip of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Don't get all squirmish, Christians. I mean, wisdom and truth can be derived from many traditions. He was sharing. It was in his younger days, but he was talking about whenever you see someone fall, don't laugh. Learn, he says. He says, whenever you see someone through some mistake become a public disgrace, white or black, rich or poor, male or female, he says, don't laugh. He says, learn. Because in laughing, you're only setting yourself up to repeat the mistake and to join in a list of people who, like the one you have scoffed at, like the one you have mocked, at some point you will fall by a similar trap and will add your name to a list of those who have been exposed. So we have this sense that she is crying out based upon her plight, based upon what she's going through, and she is articulating what she needs in order to continue to survive through what she's going through. So the next slide. What are some of the plights we are experiencing in the days in which we live? So we've noticed how this pandemic was able to do what nothing else has been able to do. Shut everything down. I mean, shut everything down. Right? The marketplace, sporting events, the airline industry. I listened the other day, and they projected that in the month of May, they will have less flights in the entire month of May, less passengers and travelers in the month of May than they have had on one single day in the month of May last year. Yeah. Shut everything down. The global economy. Physical distancing and isolation. Like, I don't use the term social distancing because, words matter. Physical distancing. Socially, we're still connected, right? Disproportionate sickness and death in black communities. Now, this is a moral matter for America, y'all, because we've been telling America we ain't had a level playing field ever in the nation. We've been saying it a long time, and COVID-19 exposes that if black folks are I think I understand, 27% of the population of the state of Alabama. If you're 27%, then why is the representation somewhere in the 40%? Why is it in the 40 percentile? If it's 20, shouldn't the sickness and the death be proportionate to the percentile of representation in the population? Then why is it different? We've seen now exposed issues of comorbidity, issues of the lack of access to health care resources, and let's tell the truth, y'all, the suspicion that we may have of the healthcare establishment, the Tuskegee experiment, right? Those things are still ingrained in the psyche of folks who are experiencing this issue and who are struggling. Plus, as James Baldwin used to put it, look, if you're going to be a relatively conscious black person in America, you're going to be in a rage almost all the time. Because that's what it is. It's just baked in the social infrastructure. And then, to make matters worse, there's governmental indifference, right? I mean, you got the president talking about winding down the coronavirus task force, as if they ever got really ramped up, as if they were really ever aggressive in creating what we need in order to respond to the crisis, as if they ever took the issues of black and brown people seriously in trying to mobilize protective measures in order to keep the citizenry safe. But the pivot toward the economy is a pivot for personal gain, for political fortunes, at the expense of people who died. Didn't he say it'll magically disappear? You know, the death, and anytime you speaking of scores of thousands of people dying without some gravity, with some gravitas, with some weightiness, it sickens me how willing we are to just let, now the latest projections will be somewhere around 134,000 people die, and it's good. It's on the low end. And here's why it's okay. Because this dog-eat-dog culture that we have cultivated suggests survival of the fittest. If you have to die in order for me to survive, it's okay. But that's what we're called to lament. That's what we are called to grieve. That's what we are called not to gloss over. Not just to get to a praise party, an experience of celebration, but to acknowledge this can't be right. God can't be pleased with this. Just for us to get some more gains of the Dow Jones, of the stock market. Not really. God can't be pleased with it. Right? That's what lamentation does. It acknowledges that this world is not the world that God intends, that we still have work to do. It has not yet become the kingdom of our God in Christ. Right? Here's the next slide. So, that's the national mood. Then we have individual griefs. And here are some, but you may have others, right? And I want you to put what those griefs are in the comment section. I want you to articulate them if you're courageous enough, because can I tell you something? It takes courage to articulate grief. All right? Silence is a killer, y'all. Silence is a killer. Because in silence, you dwell with it alone, and you don't get a way to articulate it. But when you name it, you at least know what you're dealing with, right? And so some are dealing with the death of loved ones. Some have died from COVID-19. Some have died during the pandemic, and you could not go to look upon the fallen frame of your loved one. That's a grief. That's a real issue. You couldn't do what we do when we have funerary rites. Hug on each other, love on each other, hold hands, wipe tears, hear songs of comfort, hear the liturgy of the resurrection, to be gathered in the church as was the fashion of the one who died, to give them the right of a church funeral, right? But having to go to a truncated liturgy at the graveside, right? That's real grief. And that's going to factor in how we deal with the work that our soul needs. Some are grieving the loss of marriage. You're wearing the ring, but the marriage has been dead and over. That's grief. And you're wearing it because you don't want to have to answer those questions. What happened? It's real grief. The end of a relationship. The pledge of love and loyalty that did not last to the point of death parting those who came together. That's real. In these days, we know that now almost 30 million Americans have filed for unemployment benefits. The loss of income, the loss of a job. Not that you put your entire stock in that position, but it did give you meaning. It provided revenue, it provided some purpose, that you got up in the day you faced the day you did what you loved doing, and now you're struggling with it. The missed opportunities and celebrations that won't occur. We're in graduation season where you worked hard and you can't don your cap and gown. You can't go and celebrate with your friends with whom you used to have late night study sessions. You know, folks you used to have classes with. You can't say that farewell, that goodbye, or let's keep in touch like you would have. That's grief, y'all. Just the lack of human contact. You can't be together like you used to. You know how black folks are. We're expressive people. You know, you get together, you play spades, you play dominoes, you fire up the grill, we gather around, and it will be a party, and no one even planned it. You can't do that like that. Memorial Day is coming up, right? We're not going to celebrate it like we usually celebrate it. All those things, right? These are things that we grieve. That affect us. And it's important when you're dealing with those issues that you're honest, that you're real, and that sometimes you're wrong. I see Erica says grieving, not going to church. Yes. I mean, a lot has been shared about the church not being a building. Yes, that's true. But this building is a place of significance for the people who call this home. Funerals here, weddings here, dedications here, confessions of faith here, baptisms here. You've cried here. You've praised here. You've given a solemn vow to God here. Yes, these are real, natural griefs that we bear, right? That is here. I want to hear the song, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. I think we want to close on that. But these are real things that we are experiencing that are a part of our thing. But here's what Lamentation teaches us as we close in these last 4 to 5 minutes. It teaches us that grief is normal and healthy. Don't be afraid to cry. That goes against all that the culture will teach you. Never let them see you cry. Yeah. Look, at some point, even the strongest among us face and reach our breaking points. Grief, shedding tears, that's a work of grief. It's natural. It's real. It's real. Also, shock and disbelief do set in. Because never would you have thought this could happen. That we could be out of church this long. Things that you used to take for granted. Being able to go and visit loved ones and just get in your car and drive and travel. You never thought that those things would be curtailed, that there would be some limitation on them, and yet they are. So shock and disbelief do set in. But then I also want you to realize that it takes courage, y'all, to talk about the weighty stuff. It takes courage to talk about grief. It takes courage to name what happened to you. And when you name what happened to you, you are starting to take agency back. When you name it and you say, this happened, but this should not have happened. I want you to hear this because there are a lot of people who want to simply assign it to some permissive will of God. But the wisdom of Howard Thurman teaches us that he was courageous enough to say that not everything that happens in life reflects the purpose of God for life. Some things that happen should not have happened and cause God grief and God pain. And so don't think that just because it happened means God is supposed to make something good come out of, or God intended it for. No, some things were just bad things that never should have happened. That doesn't mean that you can't create a response. You can't respond in a way that's faithful, but you at least need to assign that was messed up. Yeah, right? Then also, we learn in Lamentations that sometimes God does not speak back. Yeah. Sometimes God does not speak back. And what do you do when God seems silent, right? What do you do when God seems silent? Finally, as I prepare to bid you today, here's some wisdom from Zora Neale Hurston. And this is important. This is why you shouldn't shut up when people want you to shut up. She says, if you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. If you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. I remember when I was in my residency for clinical pastoral education, we had a retreat of our residents, and we went away to a retreat center, and we were sharing in our conversation about some experiences we had. And this was about a little over a year after my brother was murdered, that I shared on Sunday in the sermon. And I was sharing with that because, you know, I was putting so much stock in trying to be a good minister that I failed to be the grieving brother, acknowledging the depth of that pain and what it meant. And I remember a colleague said to me, and I guess she was trying to be helpful, but she said to me, when are you going to let it go? And I recalled something stirring in me that wanted to respond to her in a very sharp tone. And I let some time pass, because sometimes that's what you need to do. Don't respond in the moment, let some time pass. And I had another occasion to come to her and to respond and to say to her how much that comment affected me. And not in a good way. Because my response to her was, it won't take me a lifetime, but I do have some time to deal with it. And that's the reality. We have time to deal with it, but you have to deal with it so that it is not prolonged and cause you to put things on hold. So as the wisdom of this classical writer, don't be silent or you'll die alone, and they'll say it was a good death. I want to pray for the members of our church family who are experiencing challenges in life. Sister Joyce Arterberry, her uncle passed away. Brother Cedric Harris, his father has died, who is also Edna Fails' brother-in-law. We're praying for you all. Praying for Deacon Huey Thompson, the death of a sister-in-law. Praying for Sister Odell Booker in hospital, Brother Dennis Smith with surgery, Sister Shirley Wyckoff, who is at home, thanks be to God, and others of our church family. So we're praying for you during these days. And then today is nurses recognition. So we have some names of nurses. I'm sure these are not all the nurses, but I want to shout out Sister Rosalind Richardson, Phyllis McMillan, Tanya Thompson, Ronki Oluowe, Elizabeth Scrivens, Manetta Williams, Stacy Langford, Doris Stewart, Juanita Townsend, Rosalind Jett, Marsha Hughes. Is it Marsh or Marsha Hughes? Mary Vickers, Sandra Pearson, Rita Finch, Jordan Henderson. We shout you out today. And then it's Teachers Recognition Week. And we have a bunch of teachers, a lot of teachers. So we want to shout out the teachers of the JRS-CDCA. Thank you for your work. Thank you for adapting during these times and still delivering on quality service and education to our children. Thank you, educators, for what you do in these moments. I think I'm at the end of my time. I'm over my time. I'm sorry about it. We miss you dearly. We want to see you soon, but we're planning on what that would look like in the weeks and months to come. So please stay tuned. Graduates, send us your information. We want to celebrate you and be in touch. Thank you, deacons, for calling. Thank you, lay ministers, for calling. Thank you all who do what you do to make what we must do here possible. God's blessings upon you. Come on, Dr. Cote, give us some going out music.